Can a fraudulent computer vendor suddenly appear on your computer at home? That's a scary thought, right? Let's find out from our tech whiz, Stan Prager from GoGeeks in East Longmeadow, if that's the case, if that can really happen to someone, to any of us who have computers at their homes.
Exactly. And, you know, I've said before on the show that I hate to be Dr. Doom, but this is going to be one of those Dr. Doom episodes. And everyone should listen very carefully to this because this is a very serious problem. So this has happened in the past. It's not new, but it's become more prevalent lately. In other words, you're working on your computer, you're going to a different web page, maybe YouTube or something like that. All of a sudden, up on your screen comes a thing saying you've got, hundreds of viruses. Call this 800 number immediately. Right. People absolutely freak out and panic. They call this number. Typically, the person on the other end has a foreign accent, usually an Indian accent or what have you, which in this case actually accentuates the authenticity because many tech lines go to India, so it sounds like, it's legitimate.
So an actual big company or corporation wouldn't be taking the time really to call individual people at home usually.
And they couldn't. They couldn't. Like it's always fraudulent. It's never real because nobody could just suddenly appear on your screen and say you're infected. But people fall for it and they call, and what happens is they'll be asked to give a credit card over the phone in order to clean their system. And it could be $89, it could be $200, it could be $300. And people are panicked. They don't know what to do. Typically, their screen is frozen, so they can't move forward. They give the money, they pay it, and it's complete, nonsense. They're not infected. And often the next step is the fraudulent company asks to have access to your computer. So you grant them access, they go in remotely, pretend they're cleaning your system. Meanwhile, they're also planting something on your system which can then used in the future to upload your personal information.
Do they have to actually you have to give them permission to have access to your computer? They can't actually get on without you granting them the permission?
That's correct. That's correct.
What if they have your personal information beforehand to try to convince you, we know who you are, we have your information, to try to convince you?
Well, they're actually pretty good just at using a shotgun approach by suggesting certain things to you demographically to kind of profile you as someone who has these problems on your system. I could just randomly say, well, when you're using Internet Explorer to go to your online banking, do you ever experience any kinds of problems? Right. Well, maybe I did. It's a shotgun approach, and if that doesn't work, they have like several other lines to kind of suck you into it, more or less. Basically, the way to avoid this kind of thing is, first of all, it's always fraudulent. But second of all, nobody could ever suddenly appear on your computer or call you on the phone and tell you that you have a problem. This is very much like the automotive industry. There's a lot of legitimate automotive repair shops. There's also a lot of dishonest automotive repair shops. How do you avoid that? You develop a relationship with someone who works on your car. So when you need brakes, you're not flipping through the yellow pages trying to find somebody. You've got a mechanic you go to. You want to make sure you've got that same kind of relationship with a computer person. Now, I would love to say to the audience that I would love to have all of them as my customers, but that's not realistic.
Right.
But they need to have a relationship with someone. They can't wait until something goes wrong so that if something like this occurs, they can call their actual computer person and say, hey, Stan, is this for real? Is this company really
legitimate? Do you have people
legitimate?
come to you often asking these questions?
Actually, about 8 times in the last 2 days because it's become so much more prevalent, which is why I wanted to talk about it this week.
All right.
So it's something to worry about.
I appreciate that very much. As always, Stan, thank you so much for joining us. Your expert advice will, I'm sure, help many of our viewers. Thanks
for having me.
All right, up next.